You know, doing Southern Gospel News Podcast has been a blessing and a fun time. I learn something every week when I'm on here, and it's a great thing. Southern Gospel News Podcast has been a blessing to thousands, and without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to continue to do it every week. MyPillow is one of those sponsors. Mike Lindell and the guys sent me a MyPillow about 4 weeks ago, and they said, before you talk about it, I want you to try it out. They said, you got a money-back guarantee, 100% satisfaction, no problems. You don't like the pillow there, and send it back to us. They're even going to ask you when you call MyPillow your t-shirt size. No, they're not going to send you a MyPillow t-shirt, but it helps them in determining what type of pillow you need. They asked me when I got one, did you use a feather pillow or a down pillow? So they want to know what the best is for you. Right now, they've got a great deal on their Premier Pillow, and you can only get it by calling MyPillow today, 1-800-338-2330. 1-800-338-2330. When you're talking to them, enter the code or tell them the code SGNP. SGNP. Or you can always go to the website, mypillow.com, order anything on there, but always use that code SGNP. MyPillow took care of me. They're taking care of you. And thank them for supporting Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Welcome to one of the most listened to music news podcasts in the world, SGNP, with your host, Darien Southerland. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, artists, and entertainers about their faith, family, and careers. This is information you will not find anywhere else on radio, web, or in a magazine, but only firsthand on SGNP.
And welcome to a special edition of SGNP, Darien Southerland. We usually cut Friday's show every Wednesday, but since this past Wednesday was July the 4th, Independence Day, we were off. Here's a great show we did a while back when we first started with Michael Booth of the Booth Brothers. Michael seldom does interviews, if you ever notice. It's usually Ronnie that does all the interviews. He pushes them all off on his brother. Now, I will tell you this. The connection on this one was kind of weird because Michael was driving around Metro Brentwood, Franklin, Tennessee at the time on his cell phone. So it sounded kind of fun. But my co-host at the time, Jeff Steele, and myself had a very good time talking to Michael and the Booth Brothers and seeing what all they've done. Enjoy this interview this afternoon with the Booth Brothers. Also want to make sure this Sunday afternoon, 5 p.m., Carriage Kia, Woodstock, Georgia, you come out and see Jason Crabb live and in concert, absolutely free. Also, MyPillow. Make sure you go to mypillow.com, put in the code SGMP on any order, and you'll get something. Easy enough, you'll get something. Let's take a commercial break. Michael Booth will be right back with you. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Happy Independence Day weekend. You're listening to SGMP.
Because of you, Carriage Kia in Woodstock is doing great. And to celebrate Kia, America's best value summer event, Kia of Woodstock presents a free concert Sunday, July 8th at 5 p.m. with gospel music's Jason Crabb. Bring your lawn chair, picnic, church group, youth group, and fellowship with Carriage Kia of Woodstock on our dealership lot under the Big Top. Need a new or used car? Visit us. Need a great family outing? Come see Jason Crabb free from your friends at SGNP and Carriage Kia of Woodstock. For more info, visit SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com or on Facebook. Or as always, stop by and see our partners 24/7 at CarriageKiaWoodstock.com.
And now let's go to the Kia Skyline on SGMP. He's riding down the road probably in Nashville, Tennessee on his cell phone. So blame it on the bridges and the hills and the valleys of central Tennessee. Here we got Jeff over in Coleman, Alabama on the Skyline. And Michael Booth up in Nashville. Michael, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Got a sunny day here, and I live a little bit south of Nashville, so we're happy to have the sun out today.
And it's y'all have had a crazy spring up there. I mean, wind and rain, snow a couple of weeks ago, and
yeah,
it's been fun. We were up in Franklin a lot, so I know what you're talking about up there, my friend. Michael, you know what? Most of the time, and I told you this before we started talking, and Jeff knows this, that Ronnie, you and your brother have been traveling with the Booth Brothers for years, and Ronnie most of the time does a lot of the interviews and all that kind of good stuff. And I said, Michael, when I was talking to you the other night when we ran into each other, and I was talking to your assistant there in the office, she said, "You sure you don't want Ronnie?" I said, "You know what? We'll get Ronnie anytime. Let's talk to Michael, because Michael does all the talking on stage, but doesn't do the talking on the programs. And we got, in the addition of this show right here, by the time this show comes out, we will have had 50,000 people downloading this show in every country in the world. I sat and listened to you at a concert the other night, and I listened to you talk, and what you said was so true. And that's why I wanted you here, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us, my friend.
Well, I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of interviews. I think people would be disappointedly surprised to find out I'm much more introverted than they would think I am. I don't know. It's easy on a platform, but once I get off of it, I kind of clam up a little bit. But I feel pretty at home with you guys. I've known Jeff for years. We didn't work together all that much, but we were around each other enough to where I realized he's a good egg.
Yeah, we try to keep him in line.
Yeah, right. Heck of a song,
by the way, Mike. Well, thank you. Let me say this: you're welcome is really all I can say. This may be the first time anybody has ever heard this story, but if you'll check with Paul, you'll find out it's the absolute truth. Paul called me one day at my last church, and I said, "Yeah, man, what's going on?" He said, he said, "I feel like I'm being called into the solo ministry, and I just want to see if y'all might have me at your church." And I've known Paul for years and years and years.
Yeah.
We got to talking, and I just listened to him, and I could hear something in his voice. And finally I said, "Well, you called me, so I'm going to tell you what I think." I said, "I think you need to hang up this phone and stop calling pastors and stop calling promoters. And you need to find something to do to make a living until the Lord sends the right call your way." I mean, I just faced that man to man to him. I said, "You need to stop calling these people." And he didn't get argumentative or anything. He just said, "Well, okay, I'll take what you said into consideration." And it wasn't like less than a year later, he's on the bus with the Booth brothers. And then I saw him out to eat one night somewhere, and he just walked up to me and put his arms around me, whispered to me, and he said, "Oh, thank you, Pastor. Your advice was so spot on." And as a singer, I just said, what better job in the world could there be than to be the baritone singer with the Booth brothers, because you guys sing in such a low range. I mean, he's on vacation now, let's face it.
Yeah, he is, until we find out how high he can sing. So now I put my leads in the lead range, and he can sing over me.
Oh, yeah, he can do that. He's he's one of the best vocalists I've ever heard.
Michael.
He's a phenomenal vocalist. But I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you for that. Was good advice, and knowing what I know about Paul, that was a good time for him to just he did a lot of growing, a lot of good things happened during that time. Yeah,
absolutely. And then I'll say this, and I'll let Darren ask if he wants to. Your dad is one of the, I don't care, he's one of the kindest people I've ever had interaction with in my life. He called me one day, and we were talking about a specific individual whose name doesn't need to get on here for any reason. But your dad called me out of a real concern for that guy. He was one of y'all's former employees, and I never knew your dad. I always knew you and Ronnie, but I never knew your dad. He's, believe it or not, he's considerably older than I am. And he was just genuinely concerned about the guy, and just a real demonstration of just his sheer kindness. He's just a great guy.
He is. Everybody loves Dad, man. They love his jokes, too.
Well, but Michael, let me ask you this right here. And, Jeff mentioned it. But you guys, what do you think? Let's just talk about the Booth brothers for a second. Move past the personal stuff and just talk about the Booth brothers for a second.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear the Booth brothers, the adjective that I hear people describe is the word smooth. Okay, and looking outside, being on the inside of the industry and watching the musical groups come along, You guys really, you guys have sang for how long now? I mean, you guys have been around for years and years and years. But
it'll be almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, and let me give you this mantle, and when I hand you this mantle, take it with a trophy or whatever I'm putting in your hand. Take it with a grain of salt. It was almost like the cathedrals retired, and then there was a vacuum for that audience, and somehow, in God's plan, the Booth brothers ended up with a lot of it, when a lot of people was wanting to place that mantle with somebody else. And let me tell you why I say that, friend, because the same people that love the Booth brothers love the cathedrals. Why do you think that is?
Wow. Well, I mean, that's a tremendous. How do you answer that? Because the cats were so we all put them on such a high level, and so thank you for that. It's very kind and gracious. I think the cathedrals had a way of getting people in their living room. When you went to their concert, the stage and the lights and everything went away, and the next thing you know, you're sitting around the coffee table with George and Glenn and Scott and Ernie and Roger. And I think that there's a lot of other reasons, but I think that was one of the largest reasons. And that's a goal of ours, is when we step on a platform, is as quickly as we can remove the 4 feet of the stage from the audience and get around the coffee table with people. And so, and when you can do that, then you can lean in and you can share some things that will allow them to go home and actually tangibly apply those things to their life. And now you become part of their life, and now we're family. And I think that has a lot to do with people wanting to come back to another program and get some more tangible applications, if you will. Does that make sense?
Makes perfectly good sense. I think, and Jeff, you'll agree with me here, if you listen to some of the songs that you guys sing, they're storytelling songs, and a lot of people love those, and they can relate. Like when you sing the song "Ask the Blind Man," he saw it too. You know, I mean you're painting a picture in someone's head, and George and Glenn had a great ability to do just that. You know. Well,
oh yeah. Well, as soon as Glenn would say "Once on a hillside," I mean, you had the picture in your head. Yeah. That's a great description of it.
Yeah. Jeff.
Well, the Booth brothers, one thing else you have to say about them, and this foregoes their singing, which is great. But, you know, at some point, and I've talked about this on 2 or 3 other shows, it boils down to human kindness. People know when you're, to use a phrase, when you're quartetting them, you know, trying to give them that look down your nose thing. I've never gotten that from y'all at all. And there were times it could have happened because, you know, we've all had high times. We've all had times that weren't so high. And when you're on one of those high times, you don't tend to remember the times that maybe weren't so high. So you use that moment to generally try to make yourself look better, maybe at somebody else's expense. I've never gotten that from y'all. Ronnie is very genuinely kind. You're very kind. Your dad's a kind guy. Paul, people may not know this about him because he's hard to get to know, but he's always generated that kind of kindness. And I think, too, and George and Glenn were a lot like that. When people feel, even if you're a good faker, when people sense that you're like that, they come into a program wanting to hear what you have to say, wanting to hear what you have to sing. And it's very important to convey that. I can think of several secular entertainers. Garth Brooks is one. He tries very hard to pull you in to what he's doing by being interested in what you're doing. So, you know, don't ever underestimate the power of human kindness.
I appreciate it. You know, that's very kind too. It's encouraging to hear that. I'm glad the reputation is that. We also feel a responsibility and accountability of the platform. You know, I guess at the risk of sounding fundamentally preaching, but if Jesus is the drawing card, it better be about him. and it's gospel music, so therefore it better be about him. And what he wants you to do is treat people kindly. So that's as simple as I can put it. I think we're responsible for that. And we love people. You can get worn out by it, Jeff. Traveling. The other night, within a span of 15 minutes, I heard about after a concert, I heard about 3 deaths of people that had seen us the year before. Now they're gone, and these people are missing them. And man, they need some kindness. They need some love and encouragement.
But it does pull something out of you, though.
It does, and we're learning
it just takes something out of you. And it's hard to hear about that before a program as well as after a program because I know you. I feel that stuff when people say it.
Well, it's because you care. If you didn't care, it wouldn't bother you. And so that's what happened when you are a caring person. You feel it, and it gets on your shoulders, and you take it home. I was thinking of a family still on my mind. About 3 weeks ago, we were out in Dallas at a church, and a couple came up to me and told me about their young son who grew up coming to our concerts and listening to our music. And this young man has chosen a lifestyle that is contrary to a biblical lifestyle, and their parents they're brokenhearted. And man, I feel it now because I have boys, and my heart just breaks for them. Absolutely breaks for them. So that's part of the casualty of war, if you will. If you love people, their burdens will sit on your shoulder. And so I'm saying all that to say what we're doing after 30 years and at least 20 some years full time on the road. We're pulling our schedule back considerably. We have over the last few years, and next year will be even quite a bit more. And we're just finding it takes more time to recoup physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And if we want to maintain quality in all those areas, I don't think we can't keep the schedule that we have for the last 20 years. So that's a big step for us.
Michael, you guys have an incredible ability on stage to take timeless classic hymns and songs, put southern gospel songs in the midst, and even transition over to a contemporary song, and people not even realize it's going on. And you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I sat there the other night when you sang, let's just be honest, I sat there the other night and listened to you guys take a Stephen Curtis Chapman song, and it was tremendous. Yeah. And it's portraying the gospel. I've watched Eli Fortner with the McCameys sing a Bebo Norman song. You follow what I'm saying? In the contemporary world. Right. And that crowd just sits there and their hands are up in the air. What do you think? And you mentioned this when we were in the concert. There is more aggravation, disagreement over music in churches than anything going out there right now. What's your perception of that? And what do we need to do, in your opinion, as Christian folks, not only artists and people of the Christian music community, to try to combat and bring the church back together? I love what you said about the church. You said the little church we were in, this is simple. I love this. So speak to that for just a second, if you don't mind.
Sure. I appreciate it. Music is very divisive. It's something I mentioned on a platform the other day. Bill Gaither said, if people say music brings the world together, absolutely not. If you don't think so, then get in the car with your grandkids and find a radio station everybody's happy with. and you'll realize how separated we all are. Our approach, we have a certain window we can musically hang in. It is Southern, but we were also, Ronnie and I were tremendously influenced by 70s and 80s country, the Eagles, Gatlin Brothers, Oak Ridge Boys, Statler Brothers, but also the contemporary Imperials back in the day, Harvest, gospel stuff, but also Journey, REO Speedwagon, and I was big into jazz also. So all those influences come in. So the key to that is don't be a hero. but you can use flavors of these things, and your palate is wide. And if you feed the people what they want first, then they will go along with you within reason to these other genres and other styles. And if you notice in the program, we tip our hat to something, but then we'd come back, and then we'd tip our hat and we'd come back. Yeah. So you just don't push too hard. And those there's you play to the audience, but you also play to the gatekeepers, meaning the music ministers, the promoters. These are the people that say you can come or you can't come. And a lot of the churches nowadays, they're so opposed to anything real traditional. The gospel groups are having a tough time getting into churches. So if you can tip your hat a little bit to some of these other, using some of the Geddes music, the people who wrote In Christ Alone, that kind of stuff will go a long way in opening those doors for you to get in there.
No doubt. No doubt. And the way you done it was perfect. You was perfect. I asked, we were talking before we came on the air, with another artist, and I was talking to Hovey Lister before he died. I was good friends with him, and I said, Hovey, if you were singing this day and time, what style of music would you be doing? He said, I would always do gospel, but I would sing what people wanted to hear us sing too. And I would want to make sure they enjoyed it no matter what they were doing. That's sage advice from somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? So
that's pretty good. I like that.
What makes the Booth Brothers different?
Well, it's hard to answer that from the inside. I think a lot of it goes back to our influences, and one thing in particular is, if I can verbalize this properly, we have everybody has vocal limitations, and we certainly have them. When we were being influenced by the music, we didn't really pursue much high and loud stuff. So I didn't grow up in my growing teen years really trying to bust C's and D's and all that stuff. It really was of no interest in large part to me. So we didn't really go there, and it's a good thing because I think I'd be happier now if we do that. So musically, we work within our limitations. There's no point in proving you can't do something. That's write that one down. I think a lot of the young people, they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof in the studio, but then you get out on a concert 10 days into a 12-day trip, and you can't pull it off, and now everybody knows it. So there's those limitations. So within our limitations, we had that, and then we were also singing. I mean, the first few years, the only places we sang were fundamental independent Baptist churches, and they did not clap, they did not respond. And you had to know deep within your spirit whether or not you were connecting with an audience, because they were going to give you no verbal indications. And so I laugh and I kid about that now, but I think it's a perfect training ground to learn you to communicate with an audience, because you have to know on the deepest levels whether or not you're connecting or not.
Well, did they put?
And so
go ahead.
Well, so to answer your question, I think that had a lot to do with us creating a sound that was different, a little bit different than maybe some other sounds, because we didn't rely on the high note for the excitement. The song had to be strong. I mean, that's the main thing. The number one is the song.
Right.
And then you arrange that song properly, and you perform that song properly, and hopefully God shows up and uses it. And that'll give you a platform that'll last for a long time.
Jeff?
Glenn Payne used to say, don't ever record on your project any note that you can't sing every night. And there's so much sage advice there, because, man, you record that tremendous super dyna-whopping note that you can only do once. And then that's what everybody shows up for, and you can't do it again. So what a waste of time that was.
Yeah, I cut a song, a Mosey Lister song years ago, and the ending was a D above C. And so I got the track lowered, where it sounds funny saying that, it was only a D flat above see. And I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then, man, one day you wake up and you think, that thing's hard to hit.
Especially on the 10:30 a.m. services.
Oh, yeah, and I had to do that a few times back in the day. We don't feel so led to sing in the morning anymore, but we used to have to.
I like that. I like that. Hey, talking about singing, let me ask you this right here, Michael. You talk about recording. You've been on the Gaither tours for years, and you were Mr. Gaither for years. And we're talking about a voice, hearing on a record and in person. How does David Phelps do it? How does David maintain what he does night in, night out? It's a freak of nature, if you ask me, but how does he do it?
Well, you just said it. I don't want to take any credit away from his study, because one of the reasons he can do it, because he did the work nobody else was willing to do. The guy absolutely he worked extremely hard in his craft. He was with the right teachers, but God also gave him, those tones. My tone, if I studied as hard as David Phelps studied, I would still never be able to produce the tones that he has, because God gave him that big old head, and that's where your tones resonate. So you have a combination of God designed that man, his chest cavities, his head cavity, all up in his forehead and nasal cavity. That's where those tones resonate. So God made him special, and then David did the work. And I think the only time I've ever heard him shank something, if you will, is he sharped a B flat because he was overcompensating with airflow. So it's my lifelong goal to sharp a B flat, now. And so if I did, I'd be bragging about it.
We mentioned Hamill a few minutes ago. I remember standing backstage with Hamill years ago when David was first coming on. And you mentioned the word freak of nature, and I remember Hamill just looked at him and he said, "He's a freak. He's just a freak." Yeah, and he meant it in the most complimentary way, but he is a freak of nature. He's unbelievable.
He really, I've been on the side of the stage hundreds and hundreds of times. I've stood next to him. If you want to feel insignificant in life as a tenor, stand next to Dave Phelps and sing with him. You really have to be secure that God is sovereign and he loves you regardless, because you will feel like jumping off the bridge after.
Michael,
I get it. I told somebody one time, I said, I used to write down applications to say occupation. I put singers, and then I heard Phelps and I stopped putting that down anymore.
Yeah, right. I quit.
Michael, you said earlier, and we'll close out with this right here because I know you're busy, my friend. I appreciate the time.
All right.
Tell everybody a little bit about Michael Phelps, the man, Michael Phelps' family, and what we should. You said you were cutting back some with the Booth brothers coming up. What should we expect from the Booth brothers going forward?
Hey, Michael, we've just gone from singing to swimming now. He meant
swimming.
Michael.
I was going to ignore it, but and just go with it. But since you blew it open, I don't know. If changing my last name would help me hit notes like David, I think I'd be on board.
Yeah.
Or swim like Michael.
Yeah.
The BP brothers, man.
That's why it's podcast, guys, because we love. That's why people love this, because it's like Survivor on TV. You never know what's going to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, again, here's my goal over the next, moving forward. And guys, I don't have it figured out. I'm trying to figure it out. And the word is balance. For almost 30 years, it's been pound it and grind it out, Booth Brothers. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to provide for your family. You're trying to increase your skill and your craft. You want to love on people. You want to grow in the Lord, and all those things. And so now I've seen too many. I'm careful how I say this. I don't want to walk off a bus and die.
Yeah.
And neither does Ronnie, and neither does Paul. And I want to look back, because every night I'm on a platform means I'm not with Vicky, Austin, Jonathan, and Christian. Well, he's traveling with me doing the merchandise, but I'm not with my wife. And there needs to be a justifiable reason to account for that. What I don't want to do is God forbid, any of my family go before me, I want to minimize the regrets. And so I promised Vicki years ago I would never do anything that I didn't feel was justified or necessary. And so sometimes you turn down award shows, sometimes you turn down performances, sometimes honestly has a lot to do with why I don't do many radio things. But I told her I would only do the things I feel I have to do. So trying to maintain, and I can't say I've done it perfectly fast. I mean, just brief. I'm just flubbed up more than that. But that's the goal moving forward. So we're adjusting our schedule, but we're going to keep the quality. That's part of the reason of the schedule, so that we can maintain this level of performance and ministry for a long time to come. So that's our goal.
Nice. Jeff, you got anything?
I'm done. I've talked enough.
You talked enough. Can we get a liner on that, Nick? Can we get a liner on that? Anyway, we'll edit that part out. See, that's the great thing about podcasts, Michael. We can edit that out, but we can also keep it and use it when we want. You know what I'm saying?
You know, when you get in the studio now with tuning and editing, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
That's why I have so much respect for the Kingsmen of the 80s. They did all that with no tuning.
Yeah.
Hey, go back and listen to the Statesmen sing "If God Didn't Care."
Yeah,
it's near perfection, man. Near perfection, unbelievable.
And no tuners. No,
and it was a band. Everybody, you're probably around 2 mics.
No.
And I can even go further than that. Go back and listen to Three Dog Night sing anything from the '60s. Incredible. I heard them about 2 months ago, and at 75 and 76, they're still doing it. Wow.
Hey, did you know much of that the old Boston stuff was cut in you can look up, I won't go into details, but look up how they used to record some of that old stuff, man. It'll blow your mind compared to
it was in that guy's apartment, a lot of it.
Yes. Incredible.
I mean, that's incredible.
And just think about this, guys, and we're talking Southern gospel, so everybody out there will know what I'm talking about when I say this. If Ronnie Van Zant hadn't have died in a plane crash, would Leonard Skinner be as popular as they are today? But that's all I'll say. So, is the hokey pokey really what it's all about, fellas? That's what we're getting down to. That's it.
Well, let me stick my right foot in, my right foot out, and see what happens.
Michael, we appreciate your time, my man.
We'll know here in 10 minutes.
You know what, Michael? Let me say this on a personal note before we get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever want to see you in concert again. And here's why.
Yeah.
And here's why. Let me tell you why. And be honest with you. I don't think it could have been any better than it was in that small church and that small atmosphere the other night.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. That was an interesting situation that allowed that to happen, and I couldn't have been more grateful. We all got on the bus and talked about how wonderful it was. It reminded us when we got started.
Yeah.
And you just sang because you wanted to sing. There wasn't promoters, record companies, legal teams, all that stuff. You just sang because you love the Lord, love His people. That was a good night. I'm glad you got to see that.
Yeah, me too. And I've told a lot of people they've missed out. Buddy, we appreciate your time. Tell Ronnie and Paul we said hello, and tell Miss Peggy thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
And you ask Paul if that story I told not the absolute truth.
I will. I look forward
He's
to
such
that.
a good guy.
All righty.
We're grateful for him.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, fellas.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
Come see what all the smoke is about at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in the heart of the Smokies, Sevierville, Tennessee. Start off with T's loaded tater chips, some great sweet tea, then have some of his famous fried chicken, a pulled or sliced pork plate, or the best barbecue ribs in the Smokies. And oh, did we mention homemade mac and cheese? And dessert lovers, it's worth the trip just for a piece of cake. Voted the best barbecue in the Smokies, Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in Sevierville, Tennessee. And remember, gospel music fans, you never know who you'll see while at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill. For more information, visit them 24/7 at TonyGore.com. SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, southerngospelnewspodcast.com. And remember the Kia Summer Nights concert series, all 100% free, coming to a town near you. For more information on the concert series or to advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do.